Dear students, good morning and welcome to the Intellectual Property Law course. So we're looking at patents. We've been going over it for quite a few weeks now. So we continue on with patents and we look at some of the important aspects regarding what type of inventions are patentable. Now, before I start, just a few things to clarify. Number one, I believe the homework is due soon. So, yeah, please make sure that you upload it on time. And well, if you're not able to do that for some reason, then yeah, too bad. Okay. Um, Number two, well, it seems the exam dates are more or less suitable, so I'll finalize them and I'll inform our administrative staff as well about it, and I'll also put it up in Moodle. So, where are we? Patents. Yeah, what can be patented? So, that's what we'll be looking at today. I spent a lot of time explaining all sorts of other things. Um, but now let's look at what is the most essential aspect over here. Now, those of you who are not law students, I mean, from engineering faculty or chemistry or sciences, pure sciences, well, this can be of more interest perhaps to you because, well, all patents are inventions, but all inventions are not patents. Yeah. So basically, that's sort of like, well, all cognacs are brandies, but all brandies are not cognacs. Okay. Now, again, that's very important from a trademark and geographical indications point of view. This example fits in here very nicely. So coming to patents, of course, what is very important is that it should be an invention. Yeah, and sometimes the invention can be defined as a new solution to a technical problem. So the problem can be old or new, but the solution should be a new one. And then, of course, you can't just discover something. That doesn't help. You have to have some human intervention over here, and so you have this whole aspect of RDI, research, development, and innovation. And so we look at some of the requirements here now. Number one, of course, to be patentable, it needs to be industrially applicable, and that would mean that it can be mass produced, yeah, in an industry. And of course, that's a very important criteria. If it is of no use, if it's just something fantastic in a way, then that's not patentable. And this can often come up in different ways. So for example, there was this very famous German inventor who in the 1920s was writing a PhD thesis on space travel and sending rockets to the outer space and things like that. And he couldn't even successfully defend his PhD for a very long time because nobody understood what the hell he's talking about. So let's say you make something which is fantastic, theoretical but not practical. Let's say you make a time traveling machine on paper. All right, so you have this entire aspect cleared out, and so you think that this is what is required to make a time travel machine. Well, if it's not practical, if it's not industrially applicable, then of course it can't work out. So one example over here that maybe I'll put in also for you all to study is sorry, just a second. Space program. So here is this guy. He was the great granddaddy of the Soviet space program, and his name is Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. Yeah, born in 1857. What the hell? Yeah, how can this guy ever be the grandfather of anything? Well, he was number one because he came up with some crazy ideas about very revolutionary ideas about space travel. Yeah, and he sort of came out with these ways of figuring out how you can actually send a body into space. So time for a diagram. Yeah, or maybe we can reuse something from last time. So this is our lovely planet. Yeah, and that's Earth. Okay, and well, around the Earth is this gravitational field. It's invisible, and well, it's the only thing that's stopping you from going out into space. So you see, you want to travel in space. What happens? You have a rocket. You try to send it up, and then up, maybe more. Oops, up, maybe more. Oops, yeah, say gravity. Gravity is your enemy, it's pulling you back down. No matter how high you go, yeah, you just fall back down. Now, of course, this is the gravitational pull, but once you're able to overcome this part, then your rocket can go to amazing places. Yeah, I mean, then there's nothing to stop that rocket. But the problem here is this gravitational pull. So what our dear friend Konstantin did was he spent a lot of time looking at this aspect, and then in 1896 he came up with this formula, a mathematical formula as to how theoretically you can fly into space. Okay, now again theoretically, all right. Then he wrote a book in 1903, Exploration of Outer Space by Means of Rocket Devices. And of course, I'll put this all up for you as well. Now this is crazy because what this guy was coming up with was the idea that you can have a rocket, yeah, and well, so this is your rocket from inside, and it's got these, it's like a metallic balloon. It's got this particular aerodynamic shape. It's got fins, and then of course it has two compartments. One is filled with a particular liquid, the other one with another liquid or solid, and when you combine them at the bottom over here, then they have this explosive thrust. All right, and now if you direct it downwards so that the thrust goes down, then you have Newton's third law. For every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, so the thrust goes down because of these burning fumes, exhaust fumes, and it propels the rocket up. And of course you would now have also fins to stabilize this rocket, and once you attain a certain orbit, yeah, out of the gravitational field, hey presto, now you can travel in space. So that's really nice. Yeah, but you see, this is not practical. I mean, this guy was writing all this stuff in 1903. I mean, this was just too fantastic in a way. It really didn't make sense. Now you have to remember, the German V2 rockets were one of the first, which were intercontinental ballistic missiles in a very crude sense. And when was that? That was 1944. Yeah, so see, and then Sputnik was launched in the 1950s as the first man-made satellite launched into space. So what you're looking at here is somebody, Mr. Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, coming up with all these fantastic ideas 50 years before they were actually practical. So of course, this is a situation where it's not patentable as an invention because it's too fantastic. It's just not realistic. But of course, you see, there are all these different stories. Now let's say you want to go from Tallinn to Tartu. All right, so let's say Tallinn is here and Tartu is here on a plane, or let's say Tallinn to Helsinki. So Tallinn is here, Helsinki is here. And how do you now travel? Well, you have to go by boat, or you could go by plane, or you could go swimming, or I mean, those are sort of things you could do. Yeah. But you see, what if you could bend time so that instead of you going to Helsinki, Helsinki comes to you? You see, yeah, that's time travel. Is it realistic right now? No. So of course, all these fantastic ideas are fun, are very nice. They should be encouraged. Fundamental research, and it's very interesting, and all of these things. But they're not patentable. Okay. So rule number 1: requirements for patentability. Remember, it's 1 and 2 and 3. Yeah. So there are these 3 requirements. It's not like 1 or 2 or 3. As lawyers, it's very important to keep this in mind. Number 2 is it has to be novel. It has to be new, never done before. Now, of course, this can be quite strange in certain ways. Sometimes some things are okay, straightforward. You see, you have a landline, and And well, I have a landline actually here. Forget it. Okay. Well, uh, I wish I could. Okay, it's a landline, right? You have a phone and you call, and it's stuck. It's mobile. It's not mobile, and then you have something like this. So of course you can see, there's a difference between these two. One is a stuck phone, and the other one is a mobile. So of course some things are new, and that's straightforward. But always, what is new is not straightforward and simple. Okay, so now let's go back to my favorite part of teaching, which is physical anatomy. Yeah, don't we all love physical anatomy? And so here we are. Now this is okay. This is your food, your air pipe. All right, this is now your pulmonary system. And basically what you're doing here is, you have two pipes from your mouth. Yeah, one goes into your stomach. We are not interested in that. We're interested in this one here. This is how you inhale and exhale. Yeah, of course through your nose as well. But that's how this comes here, and these are your lungs. Okay, straightforward and simple. Now this pipe over here is called your trachea, and usually okay, of course you also have it from your nose, just in case some of you get confused. So you have these multiple openings in your face, and so that's how air goes in and comes out. And of course you have a diaphragm over here, very important. Don't forget that muscle. It's what inflates and deflates your balloon shaped lungs, which have even more balloon shaped sacs inside them. Now let's say you have asthma, right? Asthma is a situation where basically something triggers an immune response, and your trachea becomes constricted. So the hole is so big, and then it becomes so small. All right, and that's horrible. Okay, because now you are trying to breathe in, and air is not going in. So that's a bad situation here. Now, how do you deal with something like this? Well, there are different ways. All right, you could have a capsule or a pill like this. So what are you doing? You swallow it. It's a drug, and then drink water. It goes into your stomach. Stomach is acidic. 50% of the drug gets destroyed. From there, it then goes into your intestine, small intestine. It's basic, and again, half of the whatever is remaining gets destroyed, and then slowly it gets metabolized. It gets picked up by your the blood vessels all around in your intestines, and then it's picked up, goes into your bloodstream, and then from there it's filtered, kidneys, etc. Your liver plays a role, everything. And then because it's in the bloodstream, it somehow eventually reaches the heart, and then the heart pumps it, and then it goes through the arteries, and finally it reaches your lungs after 2 hours. So basically you end up with using a 500 milligram capsule like this, and if you're lucky, by the end of 2 hours or so, 3 hours, maybe 50 milligrams will reach your lungs and your trachea part, and that will be good for you. Not very efficient, right? But you could take a similar drug, maybe in a liquid form, and then you just have to inject it into your bloodstream with an injection. Yeah, so you inject it here straight into your bloodstream, into one of your arteries or veins, and then it goes straight from there in your blood system, reaches your heart, gets pumped out, and then eventually reaches your trachea and other places. So maybe you can use 50 ml of the drug, and because it doesn't go through your stomach and your acidic basic all these organs, so you don't need so much of it, because not much of it gets destroyed. But of course, it's still quite a lot. It will have an impact on your kidneys and everywhere else, because this is not really a nice thing to be pumping into yourself. Remember, all drugs are poison. If you take them in the right quantity, it's good. If you take too much, it's bad. If you don't believe me, well, swallow 10, 15, 25, 35 sleeping pills, and then tell us what happens tomorrow. Okay. Obviously, you can understand that this quantity can be very bad. But there's one more way to deal with this. You could have the same drug, but maybe in the form of an inhaler. Inhalers, right? So you have an inhaler, and there's a little, gas pump here, and basically you just put it here and press it in, and a measured dose, maybe 5 micrograms, goes straight in, inhale, comes straight here, in 5 seconds, problem solved. But you see what's happening here is you have a solid, you have a liquid, you have a gas. Now, all three could be new, even though they are variations of the same drug, because remember, this is a solid in room temperature. Yeah, if you put it in 100 degrees lava, it becomes liquid. So you have to be careful about the fact that not everything can be solid, liquid, and gas at room temperature. So of course, all of these would then be new. Another thing that could be new is just to sort of look at things. Now, this is where biotechnology comes in a lot, and it causes a lot of problems, because with biotechnology, what you're doing is you are replicating what already exists in nature, and trying to make it better. All right, so let's see, who is this. This is a happy frog. It's sitting right now and on a mushroom or something, and so the question that comes up here is, let's say it's a frog from some scientist from Europe goes to the rainforest in Brazil, Amazon, romantic adventure. And so now the scientist is staying with some South American Red Indians, or, native tribes people, and he sees that they have this strange custom ritual. They catch 40 of these special type of frogs, and they put them all in a pot, and they boil them for 2 days, and then they drink the juice, and they call it, I don't know, Hakuna Matata juice, and it cures everything. Yeah, whether you have a hangover, whether you have cancer, drink Hakuna Matata juice, and it solves all your problems. Now, of course, as a scientist, this person will be like, hey, this is not really juice or something. Obviously, you are boiling these frogs, and that is causing some reaction, and some enzymes or some body parts are leaching out or leaking out into the liquid. And so, this is what is basically the situation. So let's say the scientist takes 10, 20, 300 of these frogs back to the laboratory somewhere in Germany somewhere, and she does the analysis and everything, and basically figures out what is the exact chemical compound that is responsible for all these aspects. And now in this situation, you have an issue here. Well, now you know the chemical structure, you know the chemical compound, and so you can make I don't know, well, let's say, you can figure out what is the chemical formula. Now don't take this seriously. This is just some drawing. So this is nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, hydrogen. So you have this strange chemical formula. It may not even exist in this form in room temperature, maybe in minus 145 degrees Celsius. With liquid nitrogen, you can retain this particular compound in this shape. And now you have a chemical formula, and so you can start making synthetic versions of this, just like insulin. You see, insulin is for diabetes. You can get the actual insulin from a cow or a pig or some other animal, and then purify it and inject it into people who have blood sugar problems. Or you could just take this insulin structure and make synthetic insulin. And so, of course, this is where novelty comes up as an issue. What's new here? You're just taking something from nature, but you're making a synthetic version of that. So this can be very controversial. I have a special course on biotechnology, and where we deal with these issues, because of course these can be extremely complicated. Biotechnology also has other implications. So let's say this is mummy's egg and daddy's sperm, so that would be XX and XY genetically, and then Of course, when they get together, one variation of this could be now a situation where you have X from mommy and Y from daddy. All right, so now this is your zygote in a way. This is in the embryo. It forms a mass of things, and then already you start seeing some things changing, and so already you can see that it becomes a bigger blob, it becomes this, and then finally it becomes a baby boy or a baby girl. Why does it become a boy or girl? We don't know. There's something strange going on here because well, we are all born female. We are all female in the embryo, and then somehow something happens, triggers something, and some of us become males. In reptiles, if you look at it, that's maybe because of temperature, but we don't understand exactly how that works. So you have all of this here, the stem cells. They know exactly what will become an ear, a hand, a finger, and this is of course the baby connected to the umbilical cord. And this development continues until the baby is, the embryo becomes a baby and the baby is born, and now the stem cells stop. Now after that they will not divide anymore. So you don't grow a third eye or something after you're born. You do grow some things like maybe kneecaps, something like that, but otherwise you just become bigger after you're born. All right, and this is very important because if you have uncontrolled division of cells, then that's cancer. Yeah, so of course that's a fail-safe mechanism that nature uses. So well, of course, it's all because of these stem cells that you can now have all of these possibilities. And so what happens if, let's say, you are jogging and you have an accident and your hand comes out? Well, oops. Well, you get a plastic or a metal hand, but of course maybe you could regrow your hand. Lizards do that. If the tail gets cut, they regrow their tail. Sharks, the teeth keep on growing, old ones fall off, new ones keep on coming. Imagine how much they save on dentists costs and stuff like that. So of course a lot of this has to do with stem cells, and one very controversial aspect is like somebody had bone cancer and blood cancer, bone cancer, blood cancer, and so now this person needed something from the backbone from a donor to create special type of blood cells, and so this was very expensive. And how do you get a match? You can't just pick up anybody from wherever. But of course what the parents then did was a very experimental thing, which is they gave birth to a new child, one more child. And this was of course many embryos were formed, and then the doctors did an analysis, and then they decided which one is the best match. And so using in vitro fertilization, the embryo was encouraged and planted in the mother's womb, and so all high-tech hocus pocus stuff, and this child was now born, the new child. And then after 18 months they did a little operation and took out a part of that new child and put it in the older child, and both are healthy now. But of course there are a lot of ethical questions that come up here as well, so you have to be very careful about these things. But novelty has this very strange allure, so you have to be very careful about what is novel. And and then there are certain very simple things. There should be no public disclosure. So if you are a student, like many students get this idea after listening to my courses that you have this amazing scientific discovery that you are writing your thesis on. If you're an engineering student or a pure science student, then sometimes they think that instead of defending the thesis, they should apply for a patent first. And then there are all these issues. But if you want to do that, then it has to be confidential. It should not be published or come out anyways. It should not form state of the art. It should be completely new. All right, so that's very important. Then there is inventive step, again very important. So industrial applicability and novelty and inventive step. So one way of dealing with this is to understand what is inventive step. Well, it has to be something out of the box, something new, something never done before. So let's say this is a teacup. teapot, yeah, and you use it to pour tea. And how can you make this better? All right, so of course there are different ways to deal with this. One could be it has a self-heating mechanism so that it starts getting hot by itself, or maybe it has a self-filtration mechanism so that tea leaves don't come out. Maybe it could have a special apparatus, material, so that it stays hot longer, insulation and stuff. So there are all of these aspects, but you see, there's one way how you can double output from 100%, you make it 200%, and that's aha. You see that? Now you have two of these, so you pour it, and instead of filling one cup, you can now fill 2 cups at the same time. Now after that, it doesn't matter. After that, you can have 40, 50 of these. That's not important anymore. Those sprouts don't care anymore. They're not interesting anymore. It's that jump from one spout to 2 spouts. You see, that's the inventive step, and that's very, very important, because if you don't have this inventive step, then basically it's nothing special. All right, so inventive step is of course very important. And then lastly, patentable subject matter. It has to be patentable. Now remember, this often comes up as an issue. Let's say you're a crazy scientist and you want to make a weapon that can kill millions of people. Yeah, well, okay, good for you, not good for others. So of course the question that would come up here is this moral? Is this immoral? There are other things as well. For example, scientific theories, E is equal to mc square, mathematical methods, then plant or animal varieties, discoveries of natural substances, methods for medical treatment. Medical treatment would be something on the lines of what we saw here. This sort of medical treatment. What you can get a patent for are these instruments, but you cannot get a treatment for using a liquid or injection of liquid into the bloodstream. Those sort of things you cannot get patented, but you can of course get a patent for the instruments or the devices. And then of course public order, good morals, public health. So there are some of these issues that you have to be careful about, and this especially comes up with new things. So for example, if it's a mathematical method or a computer method software, then it would ideally be copyrightable under European patent law and copyright laws. So of course, if it's a discovery, scientific theory, mathematical method, no patent for that, as per the notes. Aesthetic creation, if it's beautiful, well, if it's like this, it's got nothing, right? You can't really do anything with it, but it's pretty. Okay, I mean, it's a horseman knight with a big spear. In that case, well, of course, it could come under copyright law. It could come under design law based on the criteria, but it's not patentable. Programs for computers, those sort of things, that's very controversial. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but generally in the European Patent Convention scheme of things, if it is a software program, if you can show that it has a technical effect, then okay, it is patentable. All right, presentation of information and things like that. Well, all of these are issues, as you can imagine, which can be quite controversial. And so of course, methods for treatment by surgery, therapy, diagnostic methods, all of these are very controversial areas, which are covered under a special biotechnology directive and special laws. And so, well, again, patent law does not criminalize something. Okay, you come up with a patent for cloning something. You come up with an invention that you can clone. You can clone Dolly the sheep. You can clone buffaloes, cows. You can clone pets nowadays, dogs, cats. Costs a bit of money. Check online. There's some place in Korea, South Korea, where you could do it for 55,000 euros. Get a clone of your dead pet. But of course, it's a different issue when you want to now clone a human being. So great granny died, she was 105 years old, and now you miss her, and now you want to get a clone of her. That sort of stuff is a moral, legal, slippery slope, and so those sort of things are not covered by patent law. What else is important? Well, there is, of course, the right of priority, and this basically covers certain things. Now, let's say, it's a very globalized system, so you have patents uh, offices in the US, in the European Union countries, in Asian countries, African countries. Now, as per the requirement for patentability, when you apply for a patent, the invention should be brand new, never disclosed before. But what if you have applied for something in the US yesterday and today you want to apply in the European Union? It's not new anymore, right? Because technically speaking, you applied for it yesterday and it became public earlier somehow. So of course, this can cause a lot of issues. So what happens is you can be an inventor in Estonia, let's say, and because it's one of the many convention countries under the Paris Convention, then if I apply for a patent in Estonia today, then I have 12 months time from today to apply in other countries. So I could apply in the US maybe next year in March. Maybe I could apply in France in December. Maybe I could apply in China next year in October. Maybe I could apply in India, in Australia, Brazil next year in July. And they all get backdated to the original application that I filed in Estonia. So that's this 12-month priority period. Very important because, well, if you miss this priority period, then you are in trouble. And there are different laws that deal with all these things. So we'll talk about them in more detail because under normal convention laws, you have 12 months. But under the Patent Cooperation Treaty that I'll discuss later on, you can also have 30 or 31 months. And what's this important for? We'll talk about it. But this is priority. So just keep in mind. Another very important aspect is the difference between a product patent and a process patent. All right. This is a very crucial differentiation because it can mean a couple of million, billion euros difference. Now, let's say what's a process. All right. Now, analogically speaking, it's just a different way of explaining it. So let's say you are in Taltech, yeah, and you want to go from Taltech to Virukeskus. So, well, you could go walking, you could go cycling, you could take a taxi, you could take a bus, yeah, number 3 trolley bus, for example, number 11 express bus. You could go by, if you're very, if you're feeling very adventurous, you could take number 36 bus from behind and go somehow, or you could take a helicopter. You could do so many different things. All right, each of these is a process. So you want to go from Taltech one thing to Virukeskus, another place. All right, and so you could have different ways to do that, different processes. So let's say I have a monopoly on the bus system, and I tell you it'll cost you 100 euros for a ticket, whether you like it or not. Well, you have a choice. You can always say, okay, fine, Pawan, bye-bye. We don't need to go by bus because we can go by taxi, yeah, or we can go by some other means. So this is figuratively speaking, like you have different processes for making something. All right. So let's say you are making alcohol, yeah, distilling alcohol. So you have a distillation process, and then at one point you have to add something to get nitrates into it, let's presume. So you add ammonia and do something. Yeah, that's one process and you get a patent for it. So that's just specifically for that process of adding nitrates to your alcohol drink. But then somebody else could use a different raw material or a different source of nitrogen and make a similar product using a different process, and they have bypassed your patent, so you can't do anything about it, which is why these sort of patents are relatively inexpensive. Because the process, and you can always zigzag your way and make a different process, add something new, remove something, and you can do that. But what if it's a product patent? Product patents are very rare, super rare. All right, this could be maybe your drug. your pharmaceutical drug, the product that will cure coronavirus. All right, this is a big ticket thing. Okay, this is something. This is like having. I own Viru Keskus now, so it doesn't matter how you come from Taltech, whether by bus or plane or helicopter or walking or cycling. If you come to Viru Keskus, at the door, I'm standing and saying, if you want to enter Viru Keskus, you have to pay me 100 euros. Yeah, you see that? That's the product patent. If you want to use my drug to cure yourself of coronavirus, you have to pay me 1 million euros because I have a patent not on the process of making that drug, but on that molecule itself, on that compound itself. Yeah, very rare, super expensive to find such molecules. You have examples of these like antibiotics. Yeah, again, you would say that these are naturally occurring, but of course, you can mass produce synthetic versions and things like that. But if it's a product, well, product can earn you a ton of money. And of course, you see that in the shares of companies, pharmaceutical companies, they have blockbuster products. And when the patent expires, the share market price comes down because, product patent is amazing. So who's entitled to apply for and obtain a patent? A natural or legal person. So this brings us to another issue. There was this case in the European Patent Office also about this. And it's what if the inventor is not a human being? Well, then you have a problem because this law says that inventor has to be a human being and a patent application can be filed by a natural or legal person. Legal person would be a company, a partnership, OU, AS, those sort of things. Yeah. Nationality doesn't matter. Yeah. Place of residence or business should not matter because, I as an Indian can apply for a patent in Estonia. You as a Finnish national can apply for a patent in Brazil. Shouldn't really matter. Remember, TRIPS and all these IP laws are all quite similar here. So there's the inventor who has to be disclosed. If you can't disclose the inventor because the inventor is not a human being, then you have a problem. All right, and I'll put that up so that you can also see what the European Patent Office has recently in February stated about this issue. What must be disclosed in a patent application? A detailed description, and then of course we'll be looking at some examples from the European Patent Office study notes so that you can understand some of these things. So you need to have a title, then you need to have an abstract, basically outlining what is the invention all about. Then you have a detailed description. So basically you're saying this is how it was in the past. It was a bad way of doing certain things. There were inefficiencies. And so now you have come up with this new idea, very detailed, and it's so it's so properly laid out that anybody skilled in the art can understand what this invention is about. Now remember, I gave the example of distillation of alcohol, methyl, ethyl. Yeah, so all of that you have to disclose. And then finally, in the end, are the patent claims. And we'll do a homework on these so you'll understand more about how these work out. So this is what your patent application is all about. And of course, you also have drawings, diagrams to explain how these things work. And but remember, once you have filed it, you can't make changes. Yeah, you can change the claims and things, but not the body of the patent application. So you have to be very careful. You have to think before you apply for a patent. You have to really understand what you are talking about here. And where do you file the patent application? In your patent office. All right, so let's stop here for today, and then next week we'll look at some more aspects about the procedural part of filing patents, and then again some specific patent claims and issues like that. So until that time, have a nice week and goodbye.